Morning, everybody. This is Mike Brennan here at the National Hurricane Center. It's about 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time on Tuesday, September 12th, coming to you this morning with an update today on Hurricane Lee. Still a powerful major hurricane centered about 550 miles to the south of the island of Bermuda. Still moving off to the west-northwest now, rather slowly at about 8 miles an hour. We've had the NOAA and the Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft out in the storm today, and they're showing that while the peak winds, the intensity of the storm is about the same, the storm continues to grow in size. The hurricane force winds now extend out almost 100 miles from the center. Tropical storm force winds go out about 200 miles from the center. So Lee is growing in size, which is what we are expecting to see even more of during the next few days, as Lee begins to turn more northward and head up to the west of Bermuda and then approach New England and the portions of Atlantic Canada as we go later into the week and into the weekend. But again, Lee is expected to remain a major hurricane for the next day or so, and then the peak winds are going to gradually decrease as it moves out of the tropics and over some cooler waters. But again, as storms move northward, they tend to get bigger, and we're expecting the tropical storm force winds to be out maybe as much as 250 to 300 miles from the center by the time we get up here into Saturday, when Lee is centered to the east of or near portions of southeastern New England. So that means regardless of the track of the center, whether it goes near the official forecast here up towards Nova Scotia, goes a little farther to the west up towards the coast of Maine, or a little farther to the east, there's going to be impacts well away from the center, especially on the west side in terms of wind, heavy rainfall, and obviously the dangerous surf and rip current conditions that we're going to see over much of the east coast of the United States and North America. We do have a tropical storm watch that's been issued for the island of Bermuda by the Bermuda Weather Service this morning. And even though the core of Lee is going to pass well west of the island, again, the large size means that they could see tropical storm conditions beginning as soon as Thursday morning. Again, the most likely time of arrival of tropical storm force winds up into southern New England. Southeastern New England would be over late Friday into Friday evening, and then up into Maine as we get into the day on Saturday. The most likely places most likely to experience those tropical storm force winds are places like coastal Nova Scotia, down east Maine, Cape Cod, Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket, with some chance of tropical storm conditions even as far west as portions of eastern Long Island, the Connecticut coastline, and Rhode Island. But again, those details are still to be determined, still 3 to 4 days out from those possible impacts. The earliest we would see any kind of watches issued for the United States would probably be during the day or evening on Wednesday. Let's talk a little bit more about the wave and rip current impacts, since we're very confident in those. This is a forecast of the significant wave heights associated with Lee as we get into Thursday afternoon. So the areas near the center, we could see significant wave heights of 40 to 45 feet. But you can see these large wave field, 5 to 10 feet, affecting much of the East Coast, all the way from central Florida up through the Carolinas and beginning to impinge on the mid-Atlantic states. And that's only going to expand as we go out through the week and Lee moves farther north. The rip current risk, even today, everywhere you see in red here, all the way from New York, south of New York to New Jersey, Delaware, the mid-Atlantic states, much of the Carolinas, all the way down to portions of southeastern Florida with a high risk of rip currents today. Everywhere you see in yellow has a moderate risk of rip currents, and that risk is going to continue for the next several days and well into the later into the week and into the weekend. So again, a reminder quickly about rip current safety. Hurricanes, even if they're far offshore, can produce dangerous surf and rip current conditions. Please be safe if you're going to get in the water. Pay attention to warning flags. Pay attention to any advice you're given by lifeguards. Did want to touch on the rainfall threat. This is the rainfall forecast basically from Friday morning into Sunday morning. And I don't want you to pay too much attention to the details here, but there is the potential for several inches of rainfall along and to the west of the track of the center of Lee. This rainfall is going to shift if Lee tracks a little farther west. Those heavier rainfall amounts could move more into interior portions of northern New England and southern New England. If it shifts a little farther right, those heaviest rainfall amounts could remain more over Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. But just pay attention, and we'll refine that rainfall forecast as we go through the next couple of days. So again, just a reminder of the key messages for Lee. We're very confident in the dangerous surf and rip current conditions occurring over most of the western Atlantic basin, and those are going to continue for several days. There's an increasing risk of some impacts in Bermuda. We have a tropical storm watch there, expecting at least a couple of inches of rainfall. And certainly could see impacts in portions of New England and into Atlantic Canada as we get later into the week and into the weekend. Tropical storm force winds certainly possible, some heavy rainfall, could certainly beach erosion, potentially some coastal flooding. And but stay tuned for more details as we refine the forecast as we go later through the week. So please keep checking in on Lee. Come to the National Hurricane Center at hurricanes.gov. You can find your local National Weather Service office at weather.gov. And stay tuned for more updates here. I'm Mike Brennan at the National Hurricane Center.